Good Girl, Exploit World presents Children's Rights. Season 1, Episode 3. During a lineup for a photo shoot for a children's health care magazine, a 7-year-old Vanessa is wandering around the lobby as her mother spoke with a healthcare expert. The reason they are there is for Vanessa to pose for a photo shoot for a children's care health magazine cover and the pages that come along with it. When it was Venus's turn to go, she smiled and got her picture taken. Back to the presents, Olivia was being trained in a children's conceal organization to prepare for further milestones, some exercise, and education. This was done after she got shot. The organization is known for preparing children for the town that they are currently living in, and the town is none other than Filnoia. The organization only takes place in Filnoia. Because the city is said to be dangerous, and because of that, Filnoia is one of the only towns that has an organization to prepare children to face off not only the town, but the whole world. Meanwhile, Oswald and Vanessa are signing on a lot of child care paperwork, which are done by Oswald himself for the most part. Vanessa did not like the fact that her kid is getting the hang of violence taught by the Concealed Children organization. Oswald asked if she has any references, and Vanessa brought out the old Children Health Care magazine newspaper that has her face on the cover. She informs him that it is her as a young kid who posed for the photograph, along with other kids in the pages. However, this time, Vanessa did not want her own daughter's face to be shown in any source for publicity, and declines the idea of using her as an example or a reference. When Olivia got home, she told that she is supposed to kick and scream whenever a stranger comes towards her. Many children were taught about Children's Day, which was a personal subject. It was not just the children who were taught about it, it was also the people and citizens. This was spoken in a mature way in which many should understand, and should save the children, feed the children, and whereabouts of the children. At home, Oswald told Vanessa about Olivia's prevention from DNAger, and what people in the town were told about. Apparently, there was a debate about the date of the National Children's Day, which celebrates children's rights, and saved from child exploitation and exposure. However, not all people would support this, as they would not care. Vanessa says there are still some hater out there, like, fucking George C. The next day, Olivia was in the Concealed Children organization company, and she was told to kick and scream. She, however, kicked the expert in the leg, thinking she was supposed to do that, but there was still more. She learned about B&B, growth and development, and human rights. When Vanessa went to pick Olivia up, she was hoping that the experts were not teaching Olivia about American Revolution that could result in her being some kind of soldier, FBI agent, politician, government spy, or any other occupations like that, which are ordered to be followed in any places like Bertition. Lately, Vanessa was thinking about her daughter. She did not want to think about Olivia facing problems later on, because she wants to think about something else isolated from that. What Vanessa is worrying about is Olivia's development. And she thought she could not treat her daughter as if she is hers forever. Because later, Olivia would know about what have happened to her when she was a child, and Vanessa tried to keep Olivia as happy as possible, so she would not grow up to commit suicide like any other 25-year-old. The next morning, Vanessa was in her room asking child development questions about the coming-of-age requirements and expectations that were set in her and her daughter's town. Luckily for Vanessa, she has attended college before, meaning that her daughter would not have to do any testifying, boot camping, or anything similar like that. Things have been going on for Oswald too. At his middle school, he has been taught about sex and human brain development and education of religion. However, Oswald knows most about this, and not only that, but he also knows about global child sex abuse. In fact, when the bell rang for next period, his teacher asked him to stay in the classroom as all the other kids walked out. The teacher started asking him questions about children's rights and other topics that were controversial. Oswald responded with obvious questions, saying that kids who wear shorts and high-top shoes are most likely to attract child predators and pedophiles, especially when they have clean plain skin, cute voices, and big bulging eyes, like other toddlers. Even though he answered the questions right, his teacher lashed out at him for knowing all this stuff, because he thought H was not old and not know about all. Oswald is a sophisticated guy, and he was not going to let anyone take advantage of his own knowledge, so he was angrily dismissed by the teacher. Oswald walked home, thinking of how absurd the world is, and he talked to Vanessa about it. Oswald was really surprised when Vanessa was a lot like him. Though, she was more younger when being told about stuff like that, because, according to her, the adults back in the 80s were not afraid to inform kids like her about such sensitive topics. Meanwhile, Olivia is doing exercise in a gym. She was learning how to prepare for any real happenings that dare to approach her, and had to be educated for her adult life. Since Olivia is a single human being, she had to remember all sorts of milestones, so that she would remember those stuff all in her brain. Because it is the only primary organ set in the human body that gives humans the ability to remember and be responsible even in a world of civilization. Sometime later, Vanessa came to pick up Olivia, and when she went inside, she saw her daughter getting serious about her health. This made Vanessa thrilled, and she wanted Olivia to get evolutionized, so when they got in the car, Vanessa drove to a store where she can buy books for Olivia to read, and get smart. Olivia was already good at reading and writing, and she did not seem to have no problem reading other descriptive words. In addition to that, her mother taught her what words means, and how to know them. That night, Vanessa is on the computer, reading through guidelines of the Concealed Children website, which she has not found out about until now. There were activities for kids to do on that site, and even stories where kids can read to their guardians. Many child development magazines were being published at that time. Weeks have passed, and finally, Olivia seemed observant enough to understand things at an appropriate age. Today, while Oswald waited to go get Olivia's picture taken for a Child Health Care magazine, Vanessa is called by the Concealed Children's company manager, and wanted to talk about her daughter's IQ and independence. Mr. Bergs, the company's manager, says about something that he does not want to explain. Nevertheless, he uses the initials, CP, to make Vanessa get the idea. Vanessa was confused about what he was trying to explain, though he makes it clear he is mature enough to handle any subject he is about to explain about. Mr. Bergs explained about kids being in World War II, and how many of them died from sexual abuse. There was something about the 70s that the children went through, and most children's favorite color is blue. Mr. Bruggs then tells Vanessa about her daughter's learning progress, and how she is getting the hang of some of it. Based on her record, Olivia got an average of 3.55 on her process of systematic skills, studies, social, and prime. Vanessa says that her daughter is MSOT likely to be instructed under the tutelage of her stepbrother, Oswald. She gives a reason for this, saying she has many work to do most of the time, and that is why she adopted a highly learned kid like Oswald. At this point, Vanessa is glad to adopt Oswald in the first place, since her daughter would be in danger if it weren't for him. Mr. Bergs agrees with Venus's speech. Yet he tells her that she should not worry, because the Concealed Children organization has a different conduct from educational schools, especially the ones in the whole town. After being excused, Vanessa leaves the office and goes inside the company's children playroom, where she saw a lot of kids playing and having fun, eating candy, snacks, playing with toys, rides, and other friendly themed stuff. At one point, Olivia finally had her picture taken, and the three leaves to go back home. Later in the day, Oswald asks Vanessa if kids like Olivia are old enough to learn about politics or any cultural things like that, but deep down, that is something Vanessa does not want at all. In fact, Olivia would probably be too focused on herself to understand politics. Vanessa says she was never a fan of it as a teen. Hearing this, Oswald would relate to it. In a statement, Vanessa knows one thing. Her child is not her property. The end.